day, ladies and gentlemen. It's July 22nd, 2020. It's Eric Coffin from HRA Advisories. I'm here with Mark Kolebaba. He's the CEO of Adamera Minerals, a company that I follow in the newsletter, ADZ on the venture, and DDNFF on the pinks in the US. This morning, Mark announced a large property acquisition in northeast Washington State, near but not in the area where Adamera has been working for several years now. There wasn't a lot of technical detail because this is a new property, but Mark definitely had his reasons for doing this, and I thought I'd get on the Zoom call with Mark and just have us walk us through what drove this acquisition, what the reasoning was behind it, and what you think you can get out of it for shareholders. I've put Mark and I in the reduced screen view, so you're looking at a picture of the map that was in today's news release. It shows a very large Adamera claim block surrounding a smaller Kinross block, which is the formerly producing Buckhorn mine. Do you want to take it from there, Mark, and sort of explain to us what the reasoning is behind this?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Eric. You'll see a common theme with all of our land. We tend to pick up ground around past producing mines, and it's the old cliche, the best place to look for a mine is around other mines or past producing mines. In this case, it's the Buckhorn mine, and we think this is an outstanding deposit. It was 1.3 million ounces of gold at an average grade of about 12 grams per ton. It had very low operating costs. It's a real beautiful mine that made a lot of profits for Kinross.
Right.
Now, that mine was in production from 2008 to about 2017, and this is the original land package that Kinross once held. It even goes back to the original land package that Crown and Battle Mountain had. And when that ground was dropped by Kinross, we saw that ground and we thought, well, this is a really great opportunity for us, and we picked up the ground around that. Now, we didn't just pick up ground. We had a lot of things to look at to prioritize it for us. For example, what I want to say is Buckhorn is a beautiful mine site. Kinross certainly did a lot of work on the ground to the north and to the south. We know this because they had developed targets they were trying to permit. And but as it is with a lot of mining companies, they don't always get to explore the ground they have around the mine. The focus is always on production. So in this case, they developed a lot of targets and never had a chance to drill them. We basically picked up those targets, and we now want to see what our next steps will be in terms of how we develop these targets or redevelop these targets.
Now, I know because I went looking. There isn't much public domain information on Buckhorn. I mean, there's some technical papers that aren't going to be much use to you in terms of targeting outside of it. And I don't think Kinross ever put out anything publicly, but I guess your understanding is that they did a fairly significant amount of early stage work to sort of be ready to drill this thing. Would that be a way to sort of short circuit and accelerate the process if you can get your hands on that? And do you think there's a way to do that?
I'm hoping so. But I'll say this: there isn't much data available. But what was available, we've got old maps that show where the targets were, what was being permitted. We use that for prioritizing where we stake. We'll certainly use that for where we explore and how we explore. And getting any data is going to fast track this. And I think there's a real good opportunity to get some data, move this along back to a drill stage really quick. If not, it's not something we can't do. And I know that the first step is to get on the ground, which we're doing now. We're out prospecting. We're looking at some of the different rock types. We know where there are some good gold values already on the property.
Right.
Secondly, we know that a VTEM survey with magnetics across that entire block will be a very big step forward. And of course, soil samples. And this is a pretty good standard for us, and it will start to pick these things out. And where we start to see opportunities, we'll do a lot more ground geophysics and a lot more, including mag and IP, which hasn't been done on this property. So
And
this is,
is it good for access? I mean, is it fairly easy to get around in the
well,
project
you
area?
see, this map is, it shows, you see all the little black lines that kind of wiggle through that property. Those are all logging roads. There's
Oh,
a
okay.
lot of, there's a lot of access there. Some of the roads are gated off
Right.
by the U.S. Forestry, but we've applied to get a key, and I'm pretty sure we'll get a key for that access. So we
Right.
can get around this property very well, and we know it inside and out because we've been on every inch of it practically staking claims.
Right.
And 339 claims is a lot of claims to go out and stake. We had 5 or 6 guys going out there, and it's they used every road they could possibly get their hands on to reduce the amount of walking they would have to do.
So what can you tell us about Buckhorn and the surrounding area? Like what type of deposit was this, and what does that mean in terms of how you look for more?
The Buckhorn deposit is thought to be a precious metal bearing skarn, and it's not like every other skarn I've ever seen. It's got some differences, but clearly there are skarn rocks in the area. But one of the things for me is it's also along the Graben margin, and in this district, deposits occur within, call it 500 meters to a kilometer of the Graben margins. And this is no different than any other area we've seen. It's on the Tarota Graben, it's along the Graben margin, and I think that while it is definitely on a skarn, I think that the high grades you're seeing are an essential upgrade from gold bearing fluids coming up along the Graben margin.
And it looks like I guess it looks like it kind of looks like a river valley, and maybe is kind of running up this way. That's basically where the margin is, right?
You got it. You nailed it. That's exactly right.
Okay. And this property, you've got guys on it now. So I mean, you should be generating results off of this thing fairly quickly. One other thing that I think is probably important to point out, because those that already followed the company would have noticed a couple of pretty important additions, one to your board of directors, another one to your advisory board. Certainly the addition to your board of directors, Mark Jones III, is extremely well known, especially by people in this part of the world.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick thumbnail sketch on both Mark and Peter?
Yeah, so Mark Jones was the original, he ran Crown Resources at the time that Crown Jewel was discovered. And he brings a really important part of the story because he brings that original history back to us.
Right.
And just like with Kinross, Crown found the Crown Jewel, and of course, all your assets and all your expertise goes into developing that resource.
Right.
So they also did some exploration, but they didn't get much of a chance to go after it. And it's interesting. What is it? 30 years later, you can talk to Mark Jones, and the potential is just as good as is today as it was back then. And I think that's a really important part of it. And Mark really knows the area well, and he's got a lot of the history behind him. Peter also has a huge history. Peter was there early on with the Crown side of it at Battle Mountain, and when Crown merged with Kinross, he went and joined the Kinross, and he was promoted up through the ranks and was the chief geologist. But he knows this area inside and out, and it's just it really does advance our thinking rapidly. So our game plan is to not start from scratch and be 5 years in to develop a target. We want to develop targets in a very short period of time and start to be able to drill these targets.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some areas where Peter can sort of point at the map. I mean, he knows where they were working, so he knows where the targets are. So what's the short-term game plan here? I mean, what do you plan to do moving forward on this project?
Yeah, well, we just got the ground.
Yeah.
And we've put our geological team on it. They have been out looking at rocks and looking for more skarn type rocks that have potential for carrying gold. And we're just getting to know the access. But game plan is we need to see what kind of data we can get from the historical sense, and then that will make all of our decisions based on that. Are we going to go out and fly a VTEM survey? Well, it's something we want to do very quickly. If we're going to do it, we may as well do it soon, not next year, but do it this year.
Yeah.
And we need something like that to bring it together and bring it into one coherent data set.
Okay. So one way or the other, you're going to be getting on this quite.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and I'll start. What we'll do now is we'll really start to zero in on the areas that Kinross had selected as drill target areas. There's probably 100 and some areas that were within a permit document to be drilled, and those drill pad proposals cluster. So clearly they're in areas that were of interest, and those are areas we're obviously going to focus in. We can put ground crews on those immediately and start to understand what the targets were. And if it's ground geophysics, we can do that very quickly. So I would say in a short period of time, we're going to start to have those completely laid out. We'll know these areas pretty well, and we'll start doing our work on those areas.
Okay.
It'll be a prioritizing.
And at the same time, I mean, this is a 100% Adamera project. At the same time, you're busy on the Cook Mountain stuff where you've got the joint venture with Hochschild.
Yeah. So these two projects are quite separate. They're separate by distance. So they're about 85 kilometers apart. It's about 85 kilometers by road from the central part of that block to the mill, or from the Cook Mountain project. So they're quite separate, but they're quite similar in the sense that they're both along a graben margin, and the mineralization that we're looking for is quite similar, with the exception of that it's far more skarned in the Buckhorn area.
Okay. And you're working at Cook Mountain right now? You've got guys.
So on the ground at Cook Mountain right now, we're doing our deep penetrating IP survey. We've got the orientation done on that now, and we're going to do the interpretation to see how far we can see, or to see if we can see the overlook at 200 and some meters. So that it's going to be very interesting. If that is a positive solution, we will then take that survey and we'll apply it to all of our main targets and really get it ready for drilling. We'd like to start drilling end of August, early part of September.
Okay.
And certainly COVID has put a damper on things in a big way, but we're learning how to work within that. We've got crews that understand the importance of wearing masks, and they're out in social distancing, and we're getting it done. And even if things get, a little bit more crazy down there, we think we can work through it responsibly and safely. And that was a real game plan for us to get to that point, to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, things have, I've followed the company for a long time, and I've always liked it and liked you, but it looks like things are really turning around for you here. I mean, this new project, I mean, there's not a lot to go on. I mean, I can actually, you sent me a picture of a rock sample, which I suspect isn't going to mean much to anybody who doesn't know what they're looking at on a screen. But can you see this, Mark?
Yeah, I can see that.
Can you tell us what we're looking at, what that is?
Yeah, forget about the silver dollar, just because silver is going up. But this rock type, this is it's a skarn.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. It's got a lot of purotite. That silvery, what you're pointing to is all purotite.
Right.
And if you really zoom into that, you can see little bits of chalcopyrite, and that's all very good mineralization, and it has a good chance to carry gold. This individual zone has got some strike to it and a bit of width, so it's something that we'll watch. You never know until you get the assay.
Yeah.
We've obviously had that experience where you get really excited by a nice juicy looking rock, and you get the assays back and they're heartbreakers. But this is the kind of thing we're looking for. This isn't that far away from the mine. This is probably within hundreds of meters from the mine, but it's on our claims, and we'll see what it looks like in terms of gold content. And you got to keep in mind, when Buckhorn first opened, it was 2008. What was gold worth? $1,000. And here we are. We're back into the 1800s now for gold, and this might be something that might really strike our interest in the short term.
Well, it was one thing that's worth mentioning about Buckhorn is it was a very profitable mine, for being honest. It had a very low all-in sustaining cost. I think it was like 400, 450, something like that. It was a great mine. And I think when the ore ran out, and Kinross still had the mill at Kettle River, and they still have it now. It looks like they just decided to kind of step back and go to care and maintenance, because obviously they it's one thing to be looking for more ore when you've got 5 years of mine life left. It's quite another when you've run through the ore body and you don't want to have everyone kind of standing around for 3 years. So they
Yeah.
just step back. But yeah, this looks like a really good opportunity. I mean, combined with the Hochschild joint venture, and I know you got a couple of other 100% projects. It's nice to have some high potential stuff where you can basically drive and determine the news flow yourself. You know, I know it's been a long wait for everybody, especially you, Mark. But I think the next 6 months here, there's just going to be an absolute ton of news flow out of the 100% project in the joint venture.
For sure. And this isn't just some new idea either. It's something we have been working on for just about a year.
Right.
And there really wasn't an appetite for taking on more ground a year ago.
Yeah.
This year, sitting, you know, we really kicked this off during COVID and during the lockdown. And, you know, still, even then, we did not have much money, but we could start to see potential for a gold market developing. And boy, did that ever pan out. And we did this on a shoestring and we got it done. It's a big piece of ground. It's coherent and it's really exciting, I think, to have.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great story, and I'm sure over the next few weeks we're going to see probably a lot more details and maybe some historical stuff. Certainly, there's going to be samples coming back from the field, since your crew's out there right now.
Yeah, you know, we've got and it's going to be. I like that double channel of news flow. So we've got the joint venture. Hochschild is really excited, and they're funding and they want to see this move fast.
Right.
That new ground that we picked up with Hochschild early on in the year, that has now been mapped. We collected a lot of samples off that. We were really pleasantly surprised at how many historic workings are on that aren't captured on any maps. And these are like some 50 or 60 meter adits going into the hillside. So you've got to think that the old timers had some reason to take on that kind of work. Yeah. And those samples are all in the lab, and we'll start to see results for that trickle in. But it's certainly going to kick off a lot more groundwork on that ground. We've got the IP on Goodfoot, Lanefoot South to work on, as well as oversight. And we've got the permits in place for drilling, and we now need to just get all this work done that we're working on now.
Okay, sounds good. Adamera Minerals, ADZ on the venture, DDNFF on the pinks. You know, a great set of projects. Great CEO. Mark's worked really hard to bring this along for a lot of years, but it looks like now there's finally the market and the targets to work with. So I think things are probably going to get pretty exciting for Adamera in the next few months. Thanks for coming on and giving us the background on this, Mark. And then, you know, maybe if you do get your hands on a big pile of the historic data, it would be nice to maybe jump on again and you can walk us through some more specific target stuff with some of the historic we can get it.
For sure. Okay. Thanks, Eric, for having me on here. It's much appreciated.
Thanks for watching, ladies and gents. I'll see you again soon.